I'm happy you alluded to the shakeup of minor league baseball. Uh, and I think it's interesting how to take all of the stuff that's happening in that youth space and the data and the way that these guys are being evaluated, the way that they're looking at themselves as ball players, even choosing baseball as a sport. Um, how do you see the shakeup of minor league baseball affecting, number one, your job and the prospects that are coming up, the shrinking of the draft, but how is it really going to affect baseball 5-10 years from now when less players are going to play professional baseball because of it?
Well, I mean, you know, not selfishly, because I am not in favor of this truncation. It makes my job easier. A shorter draft is, you know, this last year when it was only 5 rounds, I was like, oh, thank God, because day 2 of the draft is the worst day of the year for me. I mean, it's fantastic, but it's just it drains me because we do live pick by pick now, you know, of round all of day 2, and it's just, you know, very quickly you don't know who you're talking about, which we freely admit, and we get scouts to send us stuff and information and things like that. In terms of less players playing the pro game, I'm interested to see how all this plays out. You know, I think that there was not a need for 40 rounds of a draft. That doesn't mean that you wouldn't find players in rounds 21 through 40 that ended up being major leaguers. I still think that can happen without the draft. I'm interested to see how that works out. I just, you know, as time has gone on, the draft picks later on start devolving into, you know, doing a favor for a guy. Now, Mike Piazza was drafted as a favor for a guy, and we, you know, so there, like I said, there are exceptions to every rule. So I think that I'm hopeful that some of the things that will be put into place will help in terms of offsetting that. I am worried because it is so hard and can take so long for amateur player X to turn into big league player X. And it's not a straight path. And, you know, for every guy that makes a beeline to the big leagues, there's a guy who spent 3 summers in the Gulf Coast League and then, you know, finally figures it out or gets stronger or whatever it is. Those complex leagues will still exist, but then there won't be that incremental step to full season ball. That's where maybe some of the information and the data and the shortening of the curve will help a young player, because they might be more likely to be able to make that what seemed to be an insurmountable leap to full season ball more quickly. I'm not sure how it's going to play out. You know, outside of, in the short term, independent leagues are going to have a much better brand of baseball, because I think you're going to see a lot of players who want to keep playing, who have talent, go that way. Now, I hope that, you know, Major League Baseball is able to mine that talent in the same way that they were mining talent previously. You know, we'll have to wait and see.
It's getting a lot younger now. Like whether you're a pro scout or a college scout, people are getting scouted when they're in middle school or freshmen in college now. It's insane. I mean, there are people that are committing to go to D1 schools as freshmen. It's good to know that it's popular at that age. I guess I'm wondering, with the youth space being what it is now, like, how do you feel like the popularity of baseball is being affected in the youth space? And we know that baseball is a sport that's been around for a very long time, and it has a heavy tradition, especially the older crowd, and people out there are concerned with this popularity in the youth space. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest obstacle is the cost. And I'm not the first, I'm not making some revolutionary statement. You know, people have been talking about this for a while. For people who will hear this, if you haven't read Andrew McCutcheon's piece in the Players Tribune about travel baseball, and he was the first to admit that he was very lucky because he had someone sponsoring him, but he couldn't afford the cost of travel baseball. I think that's still the biggest obstacle to bringing the sport to as many kids as humanly possible. Will they still want to play? I don't know. The game is too slow for some people. Even with the truncation of the minor leagues, it's not like football where, you get drafted and suddenly you're playing at the highest level, or even the NBA to an extent. The idea of signing and then having to spend 4 or 5 years traveling around to little towns may not appeal to some kids. But the fact of the matter is, because there are still some financial obstacles that will keep segments of the younger population from being able to play at a high level, or even dip their toes in that water, is going to keep some of the potentially best players you could find from even experiencing it. And I think it's going to be beholden on Major League Baseball, since they want to hold the keys to everything, to keep providing access to higher levels of instruction, higher levels of evaluation, all the data that we're talking about, to players who can't afford it. It's the only way you're going to keep bringing more and more players in from across all communities, not just those who can afford it.